The first thing you got to do is figure out what your why is. Now, if the why is big, the how becomes easy. The why is simply the reason you're involved with the business. What's going to keep you going when it gets tough? What's going to keep you going when other people quit? What's going to keep you going when people say you can count on me and they don't show up? And believe me, that's going to happen. Your why is what's going to keep driving you when things get tough. Ask yourself, what is it that you want? And then ask yourself, why is it that you want it? Now, if you can ask yourself why 3 times, you'll eventually get to a pool of emotion that we call your action motivator. You know, some people say, I want a new car. Well, why do you want a new car? Because you never had a nice car. Maybe because you never thought you could do it. Maybe because you saw other people you went to school with getting picked up by their parents who had nice cars and you felt like you weren't as good as them. I don't know what the reason is, but what you want is not that strong of a motivator. The reason why you want it is what really drives us. Maybe you want a nicer car because your car currently is not fit for travel. Maybe you want a nicer car right now because your current car doesn't exist. Maybe you want a nicer car because you commute to work and it's an hour each way. Maybe your why is that you never want to depend on a man again. Maybe your why is to get your wife the things that she wants. Maybe your why is to be able to support your kids' college tuition. Maybe your why is to prove somebody wrong, or maybe it's simply to prove to yourself that you can do it. Don't skip over this step. It's an important step in the process, and it's an emotional step. In fact, I would imagine that you would get chicken skin or possibly teary eyes when I sat down and I first put together my why, why it is that I got involved in network marketing at age 19. It was because my mom had a herniated disc. And I knew at some point I was going to have to provide for the family financially. And when I saw my mom work so hard and we struggled financially, it brought tears to my eyes. And my why in the beginning was to help my mom financially. Now, my why has changed throughout the years, and yours will too, but spend some time and get in touch with your why. The next thing you want to do is make a plan. Create your list. You're going to have 2 types of people on your list. Number 1, people that you think could benefit from having a healthy product. And number 2, people that you think might be motivated to make a little bit more money. When you're making this list, don't prejudge. A lot of times we have a tendency to think, oh, Mike wouldn't do it, he's too popular, or oh, I don't want to call Jessica, she's too pretty, I'm scared to talk to her, or I'm nervous. The person you don't talk to won't join. And there's nothing worse than showing up to a meeting 6 months later and seeing somebody in the meeting that was on your list that you were too scared to call. I've had that experience and it's not fun. In fact, there was a guy in my high school that I didn't call, and 6 months later I did see him in a meeting, but it wasn't his first time there. He'd actually been involved for a few months and had like 35 people on his team, which could have been on my team. Also, I've had the experience where there was somebody I was too scared to call, and it wasn't until about 2 years later I bumped into him at a shopping center, and he was actually upset at me. And I couldn't figure out why he was upset, and he came up to me and he said, "Nice car, Cliff." And I think I was driving the orange Lamborghini that day, and I was like, well, thanks. And he said, "I can't believe you never called me and you never told me about this business." And he was really upset about it because he felt like it was too late. So you never know who's going to be interested and who's not going to be interested, and talk to everybody so they can't come back to you later and say, "Hey, why didn't you tell me about it?" When you're making this list, try to think of the very best possible people. If you're a 7, you want to recruit 8s and 9s. If you're a level 7 in business and you recruit 6s because it's easy, they're going to recruit 5s because it's easy, and the 5s recruit 4s, and eventually you've got nobody. So there's an old saying in our business of recruit up. If you're looking for 2 vice presidents, who are the 2 best people that you could possibly think of? Also, if you get these 2 people, everybody else is like dominoes because they're like, oh my gosh, look at who's doing it. So you always want to go for the best 2 people first. It's better to have 3 or 4 ways to invite 100 people rather than 100 ways to invite 3 or 4 people. There's not a million things you have to learn how to do or say in this business. When you're inviting people, The key is to say a little bit. The more you say, the weaker you're going to sound. I simply tell the person, I recently met someone who's working in the health industry. They've got a line of sports drinks. They're putting together a marketing team. Does it sound like something you'd be interested in? Your job is just to get them interested. You don't have to tell them everything right up front. You just want to get them curious enough to where they'll meet with you to learn more about it. Now, if they start asking you all kinds of questions, that's good. You've done your job. Don't answer all their questions right there at that initial point of contact. What you want to do is say, those are all great questions. That's why I want to meet with you, and then tie down the appointment. I think it's important to remember that you're not going to get everybody. You can't say the right thing to the wrong person, and you can't say the wrong thing to the right person. I'm just like you. I get no's all the time. People aren't interested. Don't get emotionally attached to the outcome, because then if it doesn't go your way, right away they're going to sense that, like, oh, either in your voice or in your facial expression. I invite people, I talk to people, I share the business, I share the product, I share the opportunity. But if somebody says no, they're not into it, I don't freak out or get all bummed out. I just kind of say, oh, okay, no worries, and I change the subject. It's important to end the conversation on a positive note so you can reapproach that person later. If somebody says they're not into it and then you go off on them, chances are later when things change in their life and possibly they're looking for an opportunity, you're not going to be the first person they call. So end the conversation on a positive note so you can always reapproach the person, because nobody's saying no, they're just saying not yet. Also, I'm a firm believer that I can work better with 2 people that want to do it than 8 people that I convinced. There's an old saying, those convinced against their will are of the same opinion still. I'm not big into convincing. They say amateurs convince and professionals sort. You want to work with people that want to work with you. If you've got to drag someone across the starting line, chances are they're not going to make it to the finish line. Remember, inviting is kind of like the game of baseball. You just want to get on base. You don't have to hit a home run every single time. Maybe getting on base is just getting them interested. Maybe getting to second base is meeting them for coffee. Maybe third base is actually getting them to a presentation. Now, once you've actually signed the person up, that's not when you've scored. You haven't scored until they've gotten a check. Once they get involved in the business, your job's actually just beginning. As soon as they've gotten their first check, as soon as they've enrolled their first 2 people, that's when you can celebrate. I always think it's important that you know a little bit about the company that you're representing. Vemma's been around for 8 years. The parent company is New Vision. New Vision has done over $1.5 billion in sales in 54 countries. Vemma is now doing about $8 million a month in sales, and it's a strong company. It's not a brand new company where it might not be here for so long, and it's not a big old company that everybody's heard about. I think Vemma is a happy medium where it's a young, cool, hip company, but it's got the stability. Checks get cut out on time. Product goes out on time. Yet all of our brochures, the overall feeling of the company is very new and exciting. It really is the best of both worlds. Vemma is a company that's gotten heavily involved in sponsorships with the Phoenix Suns, Michael Jordan's team, the North Carolina Charlotte Bobcats, hockey teams, women's basketball teams, probably 20 or 30 different sports teams. So it's a major brand that's getting a lot of recognition in America, and it's spreading now into Asia, into Europe, and also pretty big now here in Africa. The philosophy of the company is simple. It's to help people live better, physically and financially. The founder of the company is Mr. B.K. Barreco. He's a very down-to-earth guy, knows his stuff, and is absolutely focused on making this a billion-dollar brand. As a product, Vemma is head and shoulders above anything else out there. I think it's important to know a few things about the product. Number 1, Vemma is an acronym. It stands for Vitamins, Essential Minerals, Mangosteen, and Aloe. Vemma basically consists of 3 main things: vitamins, minerals, and antioxidants. A lot of people understand that they should be taking vitamins every day, but if you're not taking minerals, it's like trying to clap your hand with one hand. You need to take vitamins and minerals at the same time. Now, when you pair that with antioxidants, it creates an amazing effect. Now, there's a ton of research done on mangosteen, over 14,000 papers written. Mangosteen comes from Southeast Asia. It's the superfruit that provides the antioxidants in Vemma. It grows on a tree 100 feet up in the air and is only harvested twice a year. Mangosteen, the actual fruit itself, is kind of looks like a white orange. I've had it. I've had it in the Philippines. I've had it in Malaysia. I've had it in Thailand. It's delicious. But all the health benefits come in the pericarp, or the rind, that outer shell, which is really bitter. And Vemma does a great job of grinding that up, putting it into a liquid form, pairing it with the ionic minerals and all the vitamins that are plant sourced, all natural, so your body absorbs it. And the combination of those three things do wonders. Now, there's so many different people having different effects with Vemma. You know, some people see improvement with their diabetes or their cholesterol or HIV or cancer. Now, it's important that we don't say Vemma cures anything. What Vemma actually does is it makes your immune system stronger. Now, if your body is stronger, your body can heal itself better. I recently broke my ankle skydiving, and right now my bones are healing themselves. They're starting to grow back together and they're going to form strong. I mean, your body heals itself. So if your body is stronger, your body can heal itself faster. That's what Vemma does. It makes you stronger so you can heal yourself properly. You know, it's funny, sometimes I hear people say, well, Vemma's expensive. Well, number one, you get what you pay for, and number two, not really. I mean, if you look at a cup of coffee and you spread that out over a month, that ends up costing more than Vemma. So for less than a cup of coffee a day, you're going to get all the nutrients that your body needs. I mean, you look at like what we do in our 30s and 40s is what's going to affect our health in our 50s and 60s. And when you take a look around you, I'll bet you know at least 3 or 4 people already that have gotten cancer. So when someone says Vemma's expensive, I say, gosh, have you ever priced cancer? I mean, it's funny that we're not willing to spend the money today to improve our health, and then we end up sick tomorrow. So I think it's so much more important. You know, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. In this case, it's 2 ounces of prevention is probably worth a ton of cure. So drink your Vemma every day. It's good for you. It doesn't cost too much. You can afford it. Let's do this. I think when you're introducing your prospects to whoever's going to be doing the presentation for you in your first 30, 60, 90 days, it's really important to let them know who they're going to be talking with. Because if you just say to your prospects, hey, meet my buddy Cliff, then it's kind of like they're not really paying attention. So it's important that you edify, raise the level of influence of the person who's going to be doing the presentation for you so that they can better explain it to your friend. The more your friend pays attention, the more they're going to absorb, the more they're going to get it, the more likely they are to join. Remember, this business is fun, but it's not easy. It's simple, but it takes hard work, and training makes all the difference. Whether you get it here on YouTube or Facebook, or whether you get it in person or on a conference call, it's so important to get the proper training. Another thing is, once you finally get your guest to meet with your friend who's going to be doing the presentation for you, it's so important that you sit there and you pay attention and you take notes. There's nothing worse than when I'm giving a presentation to a prospect and their friend walks away to take a phone call or a text message. What you're actually saying to your prospect is that the business isn't that important, what I'm saying as the presenter isn't that important, and that you've got better things to do. What you do speaks so much louder than what you say. So if you're lucky enough to have someone do the presentation for you, don't be sitting there chatting with other people, passing notes, text messaging. You better be paying attention, because chances are that person's only going to do the presentation for you maybe the first 5 or 6 times, and then you're going to be doing it. So you'd be wise to pay attention so that when you're doing the presentation, you actually know what to say.